Hello, everyone. My name is Bliss Wells, and I will be talking about representation in theater, the power of visibility and equity on stage. For to start out, I wanted to really think about like what representation is, what does it mean to me, why is it important? So I looked up the definition, of course, and true definition is the action of speaking or acting on behalf of someone or the state of being so represented, uh, which to me felt really big to have the privilege of representing, but also can be a very big weight on people who are representing their culture, their identity on stage. So I started by looking at what does representation look like to me. To me, it looks like finding people who might look like you or share similar qualities or values, religion, um, just someone you can see an aspect of yourself within. And I asked myself, why does representation matter? And what I found through multiple resources is representation is found to boost self-esteem, confidence, reduces implicit bias, and connects cultures. I think through representation, the want to be understood and to not feel alone also comes together, and it connects us and makes us feel understood and seen for our struggles, our culture, and all that. Um, Representation also teaches us about each other and the people that we might come encounter with, and the people we see, the people we don't see, the cultures we know about, the cultures we don't really know about. And it normalizes topics and aspects of identity that should be normalized, such as homosexuality and such. We have these experiences, both positive and negative, every day that make us feel things that are sometimes indescribable. And then when you watch a show or a movie or listen to a song or watch a play and realize that feeling might not be so lonely, or those words we were looking for are in this song or in the beat of music. And art and theater has a way of connecting people and teaching each other through uh, people who are different from us, and they do it by representing aspects of their identity or presenting it on a stage. In my paper, I talk a little bit about like the many firsts we've had in recent years. We've had the first Black president, first same-sex couple on Dancing with the Stars. We've had the first Victoria's Secret model with Down syndrome. There's just so many firsts, and they're always seen as being big because I think the first provide us with the hope and the expectation that they won't be the last, and opens many doors for opportunity, connection, and empathy, perspective sharing, and such. And so with that start, I wanted to talk to students in Wake County. So I had the opportunity to talk with some of the students and ask them a few questions. First, we have, are your theater classes culturally informative? Are you learning about different races and religions and genders and just how people live their lives? Most said sometimes, which I found was good. Most sometimes, yes. So I asked them some more questions, and this one is, how is it important is it for you to see yourself and others represented on stage? One person said it's not important at all, but others found a range where it's like, yes, it's important, or it's very important to me. And with that, I asked a few more questions about when was the first time they um, felt represented on stage or in film. And when asking them these questions, 95% of students referred to their race. And for me, that just solidified it that race is a huge part of identity for students and representation in general. So I did some further research into my research and found that all white identifying participants stated that they have been represented on stage and in film for as long as they can remember, because they felt they saw white people in everything, anything where there was a cis white male or female, they felt represented, which is important for them as well to see the possibilities of their race, of women. So I looked into more resources like the AAPAC's annual visibility report, which is the Asian American Performers Action Coalition. And they showed that white actors are represented over 58% of actors on stage, and Black performers were the only other group to increase in visibility from 23% to 29% in this 2018-2019 season, which was really important. That's huge, but all other races had dropped in representation, and Indigenous representation remained at 0%. Then on the nonprofit and off-Broadway stages, 45.5% of roles went to people of color, which is more than the Broadway stage could say. But still, when you looked at Broadway compared to nonprofit and off-Broadway stages, Broadway surpassed those theaters when it came to hiring people of color in roles not specific to their race, which is also important for BIPOC actors to see that they are more than their race identity. All right. And then I have some more information from some of the students I interviewed. Here's some of the things they said about their identity and such. There's themes of mental health, gender, sexuality, race, culture, religion, age, and all that. And I just found this information to be very valuable about what children are seeing and how it has an impact on them, their education, and how important it is for them, how important it is to them to see others see the to see them represented accurately on stage. That was a lot. Okay. So I looked into WeCU White American Theater. WeCU White American Theater formed around the time that George Floyd was murdered, and we were having a lot of racial tension in our country in 2020. They released a letter of demands to the entire theater industry. They wanted equity, anti-racism, and the dismantling of white supremacy in American theater. Their change.org petition got over 105,851 signatures. As of right now, that's where it's sitting. And these are just some of the things they wanted. They wanted at least 50% of BIPOC representation in programming and personnel on stage and off from all theaters, Broadway, off-Broadway, regional, college programs, and that included a lot of aspects of production. They wanted transparency about hiring practices, salary, fundraising, and labor. They wanted cultural competency through reevaluating code of conducts, additional trainings for all parties involved in the creation of theater, and cultural acknowledgments through land recognition and just talking about culture and acknowledging it in these spaces. Um, and taking out any racially charged and insensitive language in their theaters, whether we're talking about lighting, BIPOC bodies, costuming, hair, slurs in the content and such like that. All right. And then I chose a few of the demands that stood out to me, like the acknowledgement of um, Native American land and such, and just taking that first rehearsal to have a ritual where you acknowledge the land that you're on because of America's history. Then another one that stood out to me was just creating a safe space and environment for BIPOC producers, board members, leaders, staffs, and granting them these opportunities. And with that comes having the transparency in the hiring practices. They talked a bit about not paid internships aren't really the moves these days. They talked about salaries and wages and making sure that you're being transparent and treating your community members with the respect. I also picked out the one that talks about safe and anti-racist environment for audience members, which is really important because what you're representing on stage, they are seeing. So creating that safe space, not only for BIPOC communities, but different cultures is really cool. All right. So I talked a little bit about their working conditions and hiring practices, and some of those demands included safe and exclusive affinity spaces for protection of the people, accountability to anti-racism, humane and nurturing work environments. They want to end oppressive hiring practices by diversifying the applicant pool, providing opportunities for people of color, fostering true and honest intersectionality, where there might be a white gay woman versus a Black woman, just using those identities correctly. They want an equitable season programming, making sure that the content that they are sharing and representing on stage is equitable each season, and equitable access for BIPOC audiences. This includes like how long you're doing your tickets, the price, are you providing opportunities where these communities can come see your shows? That includes accessibility and such. And all their demands for this equity and visibility on stage and off stage reached 111 theaters across the country in just 7 months. They were all stamping "We See You, White American Theater" in their statements and diversity statements to try to incorporate some of their demands, or a majority of their demands in their work. Some of these theaters included Sarah Lawrence College and CTC, Women's Project Theater, UNCG, Shakespeare Theater Company, and many more. This quote stood out to me. It was at the beginning of their demands. It says, "The show must not go on if our well-being is being compromised. Respect our skin, our shapes, our bodies, and know we are not only our bodies. Respect our instincts, our knowledge, our aesthetics, and our practices," which I felt could be very general to everybody. Yeah, so that is all that I have. But in short, this representation piece goes a long way with "We See You, White America," because they are working to be seen and visible on stage and off. And the more that we put different cultures and people on stage, I think better theater will be. So thank you, everyone, and I'm open for questions.